Good afternoon. We'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting for the City of Murfreesboro Board of Zoning Appeals for April 23rd, 2014. First item on the agenda is a consideration of minutes from our regular meeting on March 26th, 2014. Those minutes are included with our agenda materials. Are there any changes to those minutes? If not, those minutes will stand approved as presented, and we will begin now with some new business. First one there is a sign variance request. It's application S14024 by Mr. Davis Adams. He's requesting a variance from the City of Murfreesboro sign ordinance, which prohibits a sign placed in or over a public utility or drainage easement. And this is for property located at 930 Cason Lane. And Ms. Kerr, if you'd review that one for us, please.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers, members of the board. The applicant, Davis Adams, requested permission to erect one solar-powered illuminated freestanding wall sign with 21 square foot of display area and an overall height of 7 feet. The sign will overhang a 20-foot public utility easement and a drainage easement. The right-of-way is 20 foot beyond the curb onto the property, and then there's an additional 20 foot from there to the back of the easements, and that's a total of 40 foot from the curb to the back of the easement. To meet the water and sewers request, the footing will be 5 foot from a 12-inch water line, and the footing of the sign will be located outside of the easements and will be constructed with a removable hanging display sign, which will overhang the easement. The agreement for a sign in a city easement has been signed by the Director of Building and Codes, City Engineer, Murfreesboro Electric Department, Murfreesboro Water and Sewer Department. Atmos Energy has submitted a statement referencing they have no facilities within the easement and have no objection to the sign placement. And AT&T also submitted a letter of approval for the sign placement. The applicant will comply with all other setbacks and regulations, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Any questions from Ms. Kerr? All right. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Adams, anything you would like to add to the request? Not here. Okay. Then we'll go ahead and conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against the application, if you would, please come forward. And seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for further discussion or motion.
If no further discussion, I'll make a motion to approve the sign variance.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That application has been approved. Thank you, Ms. Kerr. And we'll now go on to some variance or a variance request. It is application Z14025 by Mr. Thomas Roddy. He's requesting a 4% variance to the maximum allowed 25% lot coverage, and this is for property located in a residential single-family RS-15 zone at 287 Freedom Court in the Haynes Haven Estates subdivision. All right, Mr. Bomley.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Rogers, and good afternoon, Chairman Rogers and members of the board. Our first variance request today, or our only variance request today, that is located at 287 Freedom Court, Lot 204 of the Haynes Haven Estates subdivision. Property is zoned RS-15, and it's currently a vacant lot right now. And we can pull up the aerial photo. So it is the lot with the word site on it. It is located along the south side of Freedom Court and surrounded by single-family residential zoning and uses. Mr. Roddy owns the lot and has owned the lot for several years, and he and his wife would like to build a single-family home on the subject lot. In the RS-15 zone, there is a maximum 25% lot coverage requirement, and what that means is the footprint of all structures cannot exceed 25% of the total area of the lot. And the size of the lot is roughly 154 feet deep by 101 feet wide, and the area of the lot is 15,603 square feet, according to the surveyor of record for the subdivision. With the 25% lot coverage, this means that no more than 3,901 square feet of the lot can be occupied by structures. And the proposed house, including garage and porches, will occupy 4,384 square feet, or 28.1% lot coverage. We've advertised the variance for 4% in the event that there are unforeseen items that come up during construction to allow Mr. Roddy some flexibility in the construction of the house. Here is a plot plan of the proposed house. And an architectural rendering of the proposed house. And you also have in your packages the front, side, and rear elevations as well. The house itself is going to be one story with the exception of a rec room that's going to be above the garage. The driving force behind the applicant's request is their desire to build a one-story house on the lot. And he has indicated that one-level living is optimal for him and his wife because of age and health issues. He also points out that the house is comparable in size to other houses in the immediate vicinity, but that his house has a larger footprint because it is all one level. Staff has reviewed the property assessor's records for this segment of Freedom Court, and there is some degree of variation in home square footage. The heated area of the homes ranges from just below 2,000 to over 3,000 square feet. In addition, some of the homes in the neighborhood have substantial detached accessory structures. Although there are some one-story homes, just driving through the neighborhood, it does appear that most of the homes are either 1.5 or 2 stories. And as I mentioned, Mr. Roddy's primary reason for requesting this variance is because he wants his house to be 1 story and not 2 stories. I wanted to point out that we have Mr. Roddy submitted this yesterday. It's a letter that I put at your stations. It has signatures of 7 neighboring property owners who have stated no objections to his request. And now I'll show you some photographs of the subject property. Here's the lot itself. We could put that back up on the screen. And this is the neighboring property to the east at 283 Freedom Court. And this is looking east down Freedom Court. And this is the neighboring property to the west. There is one vacant lot in between Mr. Roddy's lot and the house to the west. And looking further west down Freedom Court. And this is the property directly across the street from Mr. Roddy. With that being said, I'll be happy to answer any questions before or after the public hearing. And Mr. Roddy is here as well if you have any questions for him.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Baumley. Any questions for Mr. Baumley? All right. If not, then Mr. Roddy, anything you would like to add to the application? No. Okay. Then at this time, we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you would, please come forward. And seeing none, declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for discussions or motion.
If there's no further comments, I move to approve the variance request.
And I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Mr. Roddy, the application has been approved. Yes, sir. All right, and now we'll consider some special use permit requests. Looks like dealing with 4 dealing with fireworks retailers. First one is application Z14026 by Miss Brenda Bowman.
Rauer, I believe.
Rauer. For Surefire Fireworks. She's requesting a special use permit in order to operate a temporary seasonal fireworks retailer in commercial highway zone located at 231 through 239 Veterans Parkway. Mr. Blomley.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers. This is the 4th year that we have had this application come before us. Property is located along the south side of Veterans Parkway, just west of South Church Street. To my knowledge, we have not had any issues with this site in the past. It's the site of an existing office and commercial condo development. So rather than going through all the details of the application, I will just say if the board wishes to approve this request, staff recommends the following conditions. Number one, certification should be submitted that the tent is flame resistant or treated to be flame resistant. A fire extinguisher should be kept on site at all times. The city's fireworks ordinance should be posted on site. No fireworks are to be set off on site. The site must pass an electrical safety inspection prior to opening for business, and an electrical permit must be purchased from the Building and Codes Department in order to obtain this inspection. Number 6, the tent must meet all minimum building setback requirements for the CH zoning district, and a tent permit must be obtained for the tent. And number 7, which is not one of the standard conditions that I recommend on fireworks tents, has to deal with the directly adjacent to Veterans Parkway. We've put this condition on this application the past 3 years. There is the tent is going in an area of the pavement that is directly adjacent to Veterans Parkway, but there's a stand-up curb right there, so we don't want folks trying to get to the tent by hopping that curb and damaging their car. So we recommend once again that no direct access onto Veterans Parkway will be allowed. To this end, 3 Type 3 barricades must be in place on the driveway behind the sidewalk along Veterans Parkway at all times during the selling season. And with that being said, I'll be happy to answer any questions. And Ms. Tammy Walpole with Surefire Fireworks is here representing the application.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blumley. Questions for Mr. Blumley? All right, Ms. Walpole, anything you would like to add to the application? No. Okay, then at this time we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application? Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for further discussions or motion.
Mr. Chairman, with no further questions, I move to approve the application with the 7 conditions set by the staff.
A second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Ms. Walpole, that application's been approved. I think that was your only one. All right, we'll now consider application Z14027 by Ms. Kathy Biter for B&B Fireworks. She's requesting a special use permit in order to operate a temporary fireworks retailer in commercial highway zone for property located on the southeast corner of South Church Street and Southeast Broad Street. Mr. Blomley.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers. This is another repeat location. The 2 parcels, as you mentioned, at the southeast corner of Broad and Church, the vacant parcels. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this site. We've seen applications for this site ever since 1997. Although we have, since the last several years, since 2012, because of a number of utility easements on the property, we had the applicant hire a civil engineer to draft a site plan, and for the last 2 years, they have set up the tent according to the site plan so that there's no conflict with any of the utility easements or the utility lines, and the applicant proposes to set up the tent in the exact same manner as it has been done in previous years. So rather than going through all of the details of the site, since it's identical to last year, I'll just go straight for the conditions. I won't read the first 6 recommended conditions because they're the same as the previous application. But number 7, a licensed surveyor must assist the tent company in the placement of the tent. The licensed surveyor must provide written verification that the tent has been placed as shown on the site plan and that there is no encroachment of any part of the tent into any utility or drainage easements. Number 8, all grass and weeds growing up through the existing gravel must be removed and or killed, as no grass surfaces are allowed for the placement of the tent and for vehicular travel or parking. In addition, the applicant should add gravel to the site and or smooth out the existing gravel surface as may be needed. Number 9, the sodded area should be barricaded as shown on the site plan in order to prohibit vehicular travel over it. And number 10, the two northernmost ramps onto South Church Street must be barricaded as shown on the site plan during the selling season. The only access from South Church will be the southernmost access drive, which is the paved access drive that is shared with the McDonald's. And we found that that's worked well the last couple of years to limit the driveway access to that one drive, which prevents the conflict of those two drives right next to each other. And I will mention again that in 2010, the City Engineering Department identified that a drainage structure underneath this property had fallen into disrepair. And right now, you may have noticed there is a fenced-in area. There has been for the last several years. That's over where that damaged drainage pipe is. To my knowledge, we haven't had any conflicts with the operation of the fireworks tent and that area with the drainage or the damaged drainage pipe. I think that fence does a pretty good job of barricading it. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, and Ms. Bider is here as well if you have any questions for her.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bomley. Questions for Mr. Bomley? All right. If not, Ms. Bider, anything you'd like to add to the application?
I'd just like to say we've been here several years, as Mr. Brumley said, and we've been involved.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. And at this time, we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against the application? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for further discussion or motion.
If there's no further comment, I move to approve the application, including the conditions set by the staff.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ms. Bider, that application has been approved. Thank you. All right, next consider application Z14028 by Mr. Alan Gauger for Extreme Fireworks. He's requesting a special use permit in order to operate a temporary fireworks retailer in a heavy industrial zone, and this is for property located at 1945 Northwest Broad Street. Mr. Blomley.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers. This is the second year that we've had this application. Mr. Gauger came before us last year under the name K&G Fireworks, and Extreme Fireworks is a different name, but the same company. The subject property is located at the southeast corner of Broad and Thompson. It is the location of the A1 Cash and Broad Street Tobacco businesses. Property is zoned heavy industrial. Last year, with it being the first year, we, to my knowledge, didn't have any issues with the location last year. The one main difference this year is that the applicant is proposing a slightly larger tent. Last year, they were approved for a 30 by 30 tent, and this year they are proposing a 30 by 45 tent. You recall last year, the applicant, one of the issues that we wanted to discuss last year were the traffic management measurements or traffic management measures. Because with it being right at that intersection and with the frontage being wide open, we wanted to try to get traffic away from that the intersection of Broad and Thompson. So Mr. Gauger's approval last year was conditioned upon there being a Type 3 barricade and some traffic cones to steer traffic, or so that traffic wouldn't back up right there at the intersection. And to my knowledge, we didn't have any complaints about traffic at Mr. Gauger's tent last year. So with the exception of the tent size, which here's the site plan, the application will be identical to the application last year. And if the board wishes to approve this request, staff recommends the following conditions, the 6 conditions that I read earlier. And then number 7, no vehicular access to North Thompson Lane will be allowed. Number 8, 1 Type 3 barricade as well as an adequate number of 3-foot-tall traffic cones must be in place for the duration of the selling season along the Northwest Broad Street frontage of the subject property near the intersection with North Thompson Lane. And number 9, prior to erecting the tent, the applicant must have the water line that is located on the subject property field located, and no tent stakes will be allowed within 10 feet of the marked water line. With that being said, I'll be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Gauger is here if you have any questions for him.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bomley. Questions for Mr. Bomley? All right. Mr. Gauger, anything you'd like to add to the application? All right, then at this time, we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application? And seeing none, declare the public hearing closed. Open the floor for further discussion or motion.
If no further discussions, I'll make a motion to approve the application with the conditions recommended by the staff.
A second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Mr. Gauger, that application has been approved. And we'll consider our last application here. It's Z14029 by Mr. Aaron Blankenship for Old South Patriotic. He's requesting a special use permit in order to operate a temporary fireworks retailer in a commercial highway zone. Property located at 3060 South Church Street. Mr. Blomley.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers. This is a new location. As you know, for the past 8 or 9 years, Mr. Blankenship has been before you requesting approval for the location at the intersection of John Bragg Highway and John Bragg Highway and South Rutherford Boulevard, the gravel lot that Swanson Development owns. If any of you have driven by there lately, Swanson is building a new retail center on that property. So Mr. Blankenship had to diligently search to find a new location, and he is before you today with one that we have not seen before for a seasonal fireworks retailer, but will look familiar to you nonetheless because it was where the Goodwill trailer has been for the last 4 or 5 years at the old Food Line, which is now an IGA at the southwest corner of Veterans and South Church. Since Goodwill opened up its store on South Church Street, they have removed that trailer, and that is actually right where Mr. Blankenship wants to put his fireworks tent. And I'll show you the site plan of the property. You'll see there is the proposed tent location at the south eastern corner of the parking lot. He's proposing a 30 by 60 tent. In his letter to the board, he stated 30 by 70. After he wrote that, he has revised the size of the tent and now is seeking a 30 by 60. The site appears to meet all of the requirements for a seasonal fireworks retailer. The one that it just barely meets, and I had to confirm this with Mr. Blankenship, all fireworks tents have to be no greater than 500 feet from an operable fire hydrant. There is a fire hydrant on the Walgreens property that in a straight line is 485 feet to the farthest point of the tent. So it just barely meets that requirement, but it does meet that requirement. So, and there is a small Italian restaurant in the shopping center with the IGA. I did confirm that they do not sell beer or liquor, so with that being said, he is well over the maximum or the minimum 250-foot separation from an establishment that serves beer or alcohol for on-site consumption. The applicant is only seeking approval for the July 4th selling season, and the hours of operation will be from 8 to 11, except on the 3rd and 4th of July, during which time the tent will be open from 8 till midnight. The applicant will use a generator and dispose of solid waste as needed. He has submitted a letter from the property owner giving him permission to be on the property. He will not exceed or displace more than 25% of the existing parking on site. We do have some recommendations with regards to traffic. You'll see on the site plan, since he is going to be blocking off the majority of that driveway aisle, we are recommending a Type 3 barricade both on the north and west side of the tent, as well as an area of parking to be cordoned off so that people don't park in an area that's primarily going to be used for pedestrian traffic. With that being said, if the board wishes to approve this request, staff recommends the following conditions, the standard 6 comments or conditions, and then number 7, one Type 3 barricade must be installed to the west of the tent, and one must be installed to the north of the proposed tent adjacent to the main entrance drive for the shopping center. The barricades must be in place for the duration of the selling season. And number 8, the area around the tent must be cordoned off as shown on the site plan. And Mr. Blankenship is in attendance if you have any questions for him. Before we open the public hearing, I do have a few photographs to show you. This is the actual shopping center with the IGA and the parking lot of the subject property. And the location of the proposed tent is where that Bud Light tractor trailer is parked in this photograph. And the undeveloped property to the south. The Barfield Commons residential condos to the southwest. And this is looking east towards South Church Street from the proposed tent location. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Blomley. Questions for Mr. Blomley?
No. The one of those pictures, there's a wine and spirit sign. Now that ordinance is only for liquor by the drink.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right. If no more questions, then Mr. Blankenship, anything you'd like to add to the application?
Plan on playing the same game, just in a different sandbox, I guess. It'll be run the same way that we've been doing it for the last several years that we'll try to run everything above board like we always do. I think Matthew can attest to that. We're just having to kind of shift up and move down the road. I'm actually planning on maybe installing 3 or 4 of the barricades just so that we're not having any kind of confusion there, maybe to go even above what he's talking about, just so people are not confused to try to drive around through there and cause any kind of a hazard. Also, I think I'd be bad if I didn't mention, I know a lot of you know Jake Lloyd. His grandfather passed away, who was a trailblazer in the fireworks industry, and it's kind of been a tough time on them. But he passed away midnight or so Tuesday. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. But I think he'll be back again next month. I think he's got one more he's trying to get finished up. But just if you see him, kind of pat him on the back. Just wanted to let you guys know.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, then, we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed. Open the floor for further discussion or motion.
There's no further comments. That I move to approve the application, including those recommendations made by the staff.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Blankenship, that application has been approved. Thank you. All right. That concludes our regular business. Is there any staff business or other business?
Yes, I would be remiss if I didn't say that today we're honoring our administrative professionals, and if I didn't say what a great job Ms. Davis does day in and day out, not only with the Board of Zoning Appeals, but with her other responsibilities. Ms. Davis and our other administrative professionals, we've got a great group up there, and we're very happy to honor them today.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that.
Wonderful.
Y'all did a great job for us.
You do.
All right. Well, if there's no other business, then we're adjourned.